welcome back. Happy November. I love winter. Winter is such a great time to stay in and hibernate with the rest of the natural world and make and create. And also a great time for me to start these Crosscraft Sunday videos again. And today, and actually the rest of November, I'm going to devote to crochet. Crocheting is really, really great. It's versatile in that not only can you make projects with crochet alone, but you can also add crochet to your quilting and your knitting and make those edges really special. So today we're going to go with basic crochet, where we're learning, what all of those little symbols mean, the anatomy of the initial chain stitch, how to count, all of those things that beginners come across that seem to be challenging. And then we're going to go into granny squares, then edgings, and then we're going to do some oya, which is Turkish edging, Turkish crochet, and lace crochet. So November is crochet month. Then in December, I'm excited to unveil the first Crosscraft Sunday project that we are going to be doing together. It is a mandala. It's completely hand stitched. I love the slow stitch movement, so we're going to go with that. That will start on January 1st, but in December, the very first Sunday of December, I want to give you the materials list and the kinds of things that you should be gathering for this project. I will have kits on my Etsy store, which is just here listed below, and those will be available at the beginning of December. But I'm also a huge proponent of recycling and using what you already have, so I want to make sure that you have that full materials list so you have a month to gather. In fact, the next Quilt is Inspired book that I'll be writing, Volume 2, I will be talking about upcycling and recycling your scraps, because as you can see, I have enough scraps that can insulate my entire house. I just can't throw those away. They're so pretty, and I know there are others out there, and what do you do with them? So the book will talk about projects that you can do, fabrics that you can make with your scraps, and I'll be working with my son Josh, who has a company called Tiny Visions, where he upcycles buses for people that want to build their tiny homes. And he has built his home out of a school bus, and it's beautiful. But we came up with a concept, Tiny Textiles, which will help people downsize their belongings and then upcycle them into something really great that they can cherish and have in their new tiny home. So we'll be doing a lot with that. So there's a lot in the works. There's a lot coming up, and I'm really excited to bring those to you through the winter. But for now, let's just start with the basics and get going with crochet. So crochet is really one of the easiest things that you can do, but it is a little bit challenging to learn. The biggest hurdle is how to hold your yarn in your left hand. Get started with a slip knot. So a slip knot, how I teach people, is you make a little loop with your yarn, okay, and the one that's crossing over, which is this one here, goes up through the hole, kind of think of a little prairie dog peeking up, and you grab that loop and you sort of tighten the rest of it. And that way you know you've successfully completed a loop if you can pull it and it'll come undone. All right? So the one that's crossing over, it really doesn't matter which one it is. It's just the one that's crossing over. That loop goes on your hook. Okay, and you should be able to pull both ends and snug it up. Now, holding your yarn, and again, this is for right-handed people, you're going to think of scooping your yarn towards you, like you're scooping something towards you, and wrap it once around your pinky. Now, most people at this point will hold their yarn where they'll take their first finger and hold it up under, and then take their thumb and their middle finger and pull down, giving you the tension you need to scoop your yarn and pull it through the loop that's on your hook, like this. So as you can see, the crochet hook is in front of you and you're scooping it away from you, and you see how I'm turning the hook to get it through the loop. Okay, so again, it's here, and notice how my thumb and my middle finger are moving up the chain right underneath that loop so I can pull down on it and get that tension. Okay, now this is how most people hold their yarn. I do it a little bit differently. So you need to just practice and figure out which way works for you. For me, I can get good tension down here, but this, I'm not comfortable with the tension that I have here. It loosens, and so I'm constantly adjusting. So I'm going to show you a different way to hold it and see you just decide which way you want. But it's still scooping towards you and wrapping it around your pinky. Then what I do is I take the next 3 fingers up like this, and I'm holding it in the crook of the first knuckle here. And then I actually pull down and hold with my first finger and my thumb, and I glide the hook along my finger, and then I pull through, in theory. Hang on. Okay. I like that. For some reason, it gives me more of a comfortable grip where I'm not constantly readjusting my left hand. So that's how I do. I almost hold the hook steady, and I do more movement with my left hand. So try both ways. But this, again, this is more common. Oh, there goes my ball of yarn on the floor. That's okay. All right. To hold it like this. The most important thing is that you are pulling down away from your hook on the crochet chain that you've already made. So if you're way down here trying to crochet like this, oh my gosh, it's terrible. You need to move up and have your hands right underneath that loop, okay? And that is the secret of getting a nice, successful chain. Okay, so once you have this chain, and you make it as long as you want, what we've done, and well, what I've done to prepare for this is I've done a bunch of chains that were 15 chains long, and how you would count those is you would count these little V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I have 13. Now this would be on the hook. Make sure you're not counting the one that's on your hook. Think of it as that hasn't actually been crocheted yet. It's just the loop on your hook, so you would not count that. So I have right here, I have 13. And let's just be consistent, and I'll do 13, 14, and 15. Now this will give me a row that will have 14 stitches because you won't be crocheting into this first stitch, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But for now, I really want to try for you left-handers to at least get the yarn held in your right hand, and you'll be crocheting the other way. So I'm going to look really spastic, so just forgive me. This is not, I know you know what I'm talking about, because you know if you're left-handed, you live in a right-handed world. Okay, so with your right hand, again, you would scoop towards you like this. This finger comes up and through, and then your thumb and your first finger will hold down the pressure. You're still coming in front, all right? And you're pulling it through. Okay, move up a little bit, in front, and pulling it through. Okay, so that's, oh, I know this is really awkward, but this will feel natural for you. Well, maybe not at first, but it will once you practice. Okay. So the rest of the video I'm going to do right-handed, but at least if you can get, if you're left-handed and you're watching this, you can at least get how to hold the yarn. Okay, this is the initial chain. This is what you would make when you're first starting to crochet. And looking at it, it's got a front side and a back side. So if you can see that, it's the front side looks like a really pretty, kind of a perfect chain. And then when you just flip it over, you'll see these bumps. Okay, I call them like the little crocodile bumps. 1, 2, can you see that? So when you first initially go into the chain to crochet, whether you're doing single crochet or double, it doesn't really matter. Take my left-handed messiness out. You have 2 choices. Well, you have more than 2 choices, but typically, you know, when you read a pattern and it just says like go right into single crochet, what you want to do is you're not going into the first one. That first one will give you the height that you need to round your corner. You're either going into the bottom of the stitch, okay, and that will give it strength so that if you go just into the top, so I'm entering into the V. If you go into the top of the stitch, what'll happen, I'm just going to work a single crochet, and we'll talk more about this, but I just want you to know what's going to happen. What'll happen is the top of that will separate and you'll get these holes in your bottom chain. Not a huge deal, but it's not, I like a more secure stitch. So what I do is I'll still enter the V, but I'll go into the bottom of it, and then you can see on the top I've got the back bump and the initial part, the top part of that chain. And so I've got 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And then I go through, and that provides a more secure stitch. You see that? So again, it's in the V. I've got 2 pieces of crochet on the top, come through, and then that's a single crochet, but I will talk more about that in a little bit. The other thing you could do is you could turn the chain around and go into the bumps. Now for me this is harder because my bumps are tight, and I've got a G hook here, and I've got just good old sugar and cream yarn that you can just get at the craft shop. A lot of people just learn by doing dishcloths, so that's just, it's an easy thing to learn. I'm always a proponent of supporting your local yarn shop, quilt shop, or whatever, having been one of those. And besides that, you'll get lots of good support and the best materials available. So, but to learn, you know, run over and just grab a ball of whatever, cheapy old cotton. So as you can see, I'm going into the back of the loop. So if I look at my front chain and I turn it around, I'm going into that sort of crocodile bump. So you could definitely do that too. That's personal preference. In fact, I think that's how my mom does it. I think she goes in to the bump rather than the beginning. All I can tell you is this. The very first row of crochet is really hard to do. And then after that, it becomes more obvious. All right, so when you go into the bumps, if you turn it around, that gives you sort of that full chain on the bottom, which is really pretty. And if you go into the bottom, you've got just this kind of overlapping 1 chain, which is also really pretty. So that's personal preference, and just do what's easiest for you. It really doesn't matter. I would just avoid going into just this top loop here, because as soon as you pull on it, look, you've got that hole, and that hole kind of drives me crazy. I can't stand that. So I go into the bottom. That's just what I do. Okay, so that is the chain and the anatomy of that chain. All right, so let's just quick work another couple of chains here. And then the first thing I want to show you is a slip stitch. So be careful, because when you're reading patterns from the United States, the stitches that I'm going to show you are what they are. But if you have a pattern from the UK, you have to step down 1. So if you pick up a pattern from the UK, just do some research on that and make sure that when they say single, you're actually doing a slip stitch, and when they say double, you're doing a single. So if you remember when we were doing our chain, your hook goes in front and then underneath, and it comes through. But when you go into a stitch, you're going to go into the stitch and then under the chain, so it's easy to just bring it through. Now slip stitch is you just take that loop and you bring it through the stitch that's on your needle. Doesn't give you very much height at all. It just strengthens what you're doing and kind of allows you to travel along your chain without adding too much height. Okay, so that's a slip stitch. And again to the bottom. And you see now, some people go over and pull, but that's actually more awkward. What you want to do is go into the stitch, go under, and see how I'm rotating that hook. And if you rotate, oops, I split it. That's the other problem with cotton. If you rotate it, it's easy to come through. All right? So again, that's slip stitch, and you'll see that in a pattern as SS, slip stitch. Once you're done with that out of the way, you will have a row that looks like this. Okay, so you've got your slip stitches across the top, and you've got the bottom of your piece. Now, what you're going to want to do. And I'm going to switch colors here so you can see what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and do this dark green. Okay. When you're adding a color, I'm going to take this last slip stitch out because here's a little hint for you. When you're adding a color, the best thing to do is pull your color in on the very last step of the very last stitch that you worked. And that will eliminate, if you've already been crocheting and you know a little bit about crochet, that'll eliminate that little jog of color that always seems to be there at the beginning of your row. So you see what I did? I didn't even do a slip knot to begin with. I just pulled that color through and now we're all set. We can go through it. But let's count the stitches. This is a big deal with crochet. A lot of people miscount and then their crochet grows in all kinds of weird ways. So looking at this to make sure we always have 14, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And again, you're not going to count the chain that's on the stitch. Excuse me, the chain that's on the hook. You're going to chain 1. We're going to work some single crochets now. You're going to chain 1, and what that does is that gives you height. And you'll see in a pattern it'll say chain 1 and turn. And that gives you the height that you need to be able to go into the row without having this sort of like slant here, okay? So the chain 1 will work with a slip stitch and a single crochet. And that's what we're going to do across this row. And what you're looking at is that bird's eye view. You see these stitches, they almost look like knitted stitches, don't they? You're going to go into both of them. You're going to insert your hook, and again, we're underneath that green. Come through and come through. Now that looked a little different, didn't it? So we're going to go into the top loops, both of those loops, and I've got this wooden hook, so it's a little harder to get into. But now here, instead of bringing that through as a slip stitch, you're going to yarn over again and bring it through 2 loops on the hook, and that is a single crochet, and you'll see that in a pattern as SC. In a United States pattern as SC. And again, we're going to go into both the top loops. Okay. Now if you're beginning in crochet and you've crocheted a little bit before and you've encountered something in the pattern that says TBL, that means through the back loop. TBL means through the back loop. So normally crochet you would be going into both of these loops like this. We'll do another one. This is single crochet. And if you see something that says TBL, all you're going to do is you're going to go through the back loop. Okay. If you see something that says, oh, I split this is cotton. Okay, and that's no big deal. You just put your hook into there and then grab the whole piece of yarn. All right. And then front loop, same. You're just going to go into the front loop only. And that's generally just for decorative purposes. Okay, and we're going to go all the way to the end, and then it will look like that. This is actually dark green, but it is showing up like midnight on the camera. But anyway, you can see that that is the row of single crochet. Now I'm going to change colors to that light color again, which means I'm going to take that last stitch out, that last part of the single crochet out, and pull through the green. And finish out that single crochet in that light green. Okay, now we're going to work a half double crochet. So I'm going to just chain 2 because that's a little bit of a higher stitch. Okay, and a half double, what you'll do is you'll yarn over first and go into the first stitch. And this brings me to another question a lot of people always had. How do you know what is the first stitch? So you've chained 2, right? You wouldn't go into those. You'll go into the first stitch, which is really the last stitch of the last row. And to make sure we can count our stitches. I know this is really dark. I'm so sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the 14th stitch is what we would go into. So half double is you would yarn over, go into the stitch, and remember we're working underneath, fail, okay, grab it. Now I've got 3 loops on the hook, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over and go through all 3. Just kind of pull everything tight. Okay, again, yarn over. Now crocheting gets a little easier because it's really obvious where you go in, where that first row is really kind of tough. Okay, go through all 3. So half double crochet, you'll see it as HDC. You'll yarn over, yarn over, and see in the yarn over, I'm not going over and coming for, I'm under. Okay. I've got 2, I'm going through 2 loops. All right, and that's half double crochet. So once you work that all the way across the row, you will have this guy. So you can see they're a little taller than the single crochets. The half double crochet, that's the back of it. It's the front. Okay, so it kind of looks like a single crochet with 1 horizontal bar that's going across the row. So then we're going to switch color and we're going to do a double crochet. So I'm going to just insert my hook through these last, actually it's easier if you just pull this out, pull that last color out, because remember I'm changing color. So I want to pull that new color in through the last step of my last half double crochet, which eliminates that weirdness at the beginning of the row. Alright, so now we're going to do a double crochet. And to do a double crochet, you do still chain 2 at the beginning. 1, 2. And then you turn it. We're going to go back in the other direction. And let's just, for grins, make sure we still have our 14 stitches. If you're ever in doubt of where you go in and where you end, counting is just the best way to do it. Okay, so you're at 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And you would never count these 2 chains at the beginning of your row. Okay, so you're going to go in. This is just like the half double crochet, except here's the difference. You yarn over and go through 2. You yarn over and go through 2. Okay, so what we have here is we have the beginning chain. Let's get up here a little bit because I know this is so dark. You have your beginning chain here and then your first double crochet. And then we're going to work the rest of the double crochet all along here. And when you insert your hook, you have those 2 loops, which is the correct way. Okay, so it's yarn over into the spot. And now you have 2. And don't be afraid to kind of lift up on it. If you're working really tight here, it's hard to get everything through. So lift up on it a little bit. That's fine to do. Yarn over, go through 2. Yarn over, go through 2. That is a double crochet. And I think, I like to think of it, and maybe this is how it is, of that you're pulling the yarn through 2 loops twice, so that's why it's called a double crochet. Even though you're only yarning over once in a double crochet, you insert, and you see my hook is already under the yarn. I'm going to grab it, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. That's a double crochet. All right, and you can kind of see we're growing here. Obviously, double crochets are a lot taller, so if you do a project that's all double crochets, your project's going to go a lot faster. And if you split the yarn, it's not a big deal. I mean, if you crochet with wool, you won't have that problem. Wool is very springy and it's got a great memory, and it won't split on you. But cotton is a bugger. Even this twisted cotton can sometimes cause you some problems. So, you know, if you're grabbing, like, what'll happen is your hook will just grab half and you're just pulling that through, and you'll notice right away because it gets all funky. See that? So just take your hook out, regroup, right? Go in, and then just make sure you're pulling the whole thing through. It's not a big deal. Happens to the best of us. All right, so once you finish that, you will have a whole row of double crochets. Okay, that look like this. Okay, so we've got our initial chain, and you kind of have to look to the back to see the slip stitch. The slip stitch kind of hides, because again, that doesn't give you very much height at all. And then we have our single crochet done in the dark green, and then our half double crochets done in the light, and our double crochets done in the dark. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work treble crochets. So you'll see that too. TC, treble crochet. So the very last step of the double crochet, we're going to take that out. All right, and then grab our light green yarn so we can see the difference. And then just pull that through. Now on a treble crochet, TC, you'll actually chain 3 times. Okay, just to give yourself the height that you need so you don't get that weird slant at the beginning. So you got 1, 2, 3, and turn. So we're going right to left, if you're right-handed again. Now a treble crochet, 1, 2, you're going in, and now look, I have 4 loops on that hook. So you're going to run, you're going to yarn over and go through 2 3 times, hence the treble. Okay, and that gives a substantially taller stitch. Okay, we've got our initial chain 3. 1, 2. Pull the loop through 3 times. 1, 2. And when that's done, you will have a piece that looks like that. All right, so those are the basic stitches that you'll encounter when you're first learning how to crochet. So next week, we'll work on something a little different. We're gonna do a granny square. And so maybe have 3 different colors of yarn, your G or your H hook, and we'll learn some increasing, decreasing, crocheting in the round, and then how to weave in your ends. Okay, so that'll be next week. And then we can look forward to doing some edgings, which will be really fun. And then the last one, I'm going to show you how to do Oya, which is Turkish edging. And that is crocheting with this teeny tiny little guy. And here's a necklace I made years ago that I just love. All the flowers and the chains and everything were done with this little hook. And that's really a really fun thing. In fact, we're going to work some of this in the Mandala project, Crosscraft project. And then just to show you something totally different, you can get these huge hooks and rock a crochet project out in like hours. The difference is hysterical between these two. So it's really fun to play with. This is just 1 row of single crochet. So you can get as big or as teeny tiny as you want to. But for now, just getting the basics down, you'll be able to do all of these things in no time. You got to just get over that initial learning hump of how to hold the yarn and work the stitches. So practice that for a week, and then we'll see you next Sunday for some more advanced stitches. Thank you so much for joining me on this very basic crochet. I hope it wasn't too boring for you. And those of you who have done a little bit of crochet, I was just trying to hit everybody and the people that have never ever picked up a hook and yarn before. So I will leave you with that, and I hope to see you next week for Crosscraft Sunday Crochet Intermediate Part 2. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Sunday.